In this episode, I have a conversation with Marc Estes about how to effectively reach people in the digital age. Welcome to another episode of the Church Leadership Lab, the podcast dedicated to conversations that empower healthy churches. I hope you are well. I'm thankful for you and really glad to be back with another episode today. Now, we're going to jump into a conversation that I had with Marc Estes, and we talk about all things reaching people in the digital age. Now, that's something that I know a lot of church leaders have struggled with. A lot of church leaders has felt, man, can we just go back to how things were? But the reality is most of us live our lives through our digital devices. And so our conversation centered around what does it look like to both change your strategy, both change your methods, and use technology to actually reach people where they're at. We have such a great conversation, and Marc has such an incredible background and experience, and he brings so much wisdom to this. He is the co-founder and CEO of Visitor Reach, a groundbreaking AI-driven platform designed to revolutionize digital outreach and follow-up for churches. Now, before Visitor Reach, Marc served as the senior pastor at Manna House in Portland, Oregon, which is a church of over 6,000 people. He was also the chancellor of Portland Bible College, which has trained over 6,000 leaders in 70 nations. In addition to this, Marc has served as the president of Manna House Global Movement on the apostolic team for Ministers Fellowship International, which includes over 10,000 churches globally, as well as a number of other church planting and church resourcing organizations. Now, over the years, Marc has written a prolific volume of church resources, books, training materials, as well as an award-winning book, Jesus Today, released in 2000. In addition to his focus on ministry, Marc has a broad background in business. He's owned a variety of companies, been involved in decades of business consulting and strategic planning, as well as sits on many boards, including churches, schools, and other nonprofit organizations. Marc lives in Happy Valley, Oregon, along with his wonderful wife, Susan. They have 2 grown daughters, 2 sons, 2 son-in-laws, and 4 grandkids. This conversation is so rich. We dive into what is Visitor Reach, how does it help churches? We talk about technology and how to use it in the right ways. And ultimately, we talk about the need to have a heart for people when it comes to actually wanting to reach people. Excited for this conversation, excited for you to hear it. So without further ado, here is my conversation with Marc Estes. Well, Marc, thank you so much for taking some time and coming on the podcast today. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for letting me be a part of this amazing ministry and conversation today.
Yeah, I'm super excited for it. Well, we've shared kind of your public bio with everybody, so everyone's heard that. But one thing that I know is there's always something that doesn't make the public bio that all your friends, all your family would know about you. So for you, what is that thing?
Well, I'm going to have to say I absolutely love car racing. I grew up as a kid in Southern California. My dad would take me out to this dirt track called Ascot out in Gardena, California. And man, I just remember as a kid going out and watching all of these legends jump into their cars and throw dirt everywhere. And man, I just got addicted to the adrenaline and the noise and the speed and all that kind of stuff. And so I just have to say, man, I love things that go fast and things that are loud.
That's awesome. So Have you done any racing yourself then?
Unfortunately not, although I've got into some race cars out at, Portland Raceway, got to jump into some NASCAR cars out in Talladega Speedway. And so I get to play around a little bit. It would be my dream or bucket list to get in and do a race for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, hey, we'll see. Maybe when we do episode 2, you'll have done that. We'll hear all about it. Well, we're talking about a number of things today, but all kind of centering around what does it look like to engage and reach people in the church, and what role does technology play in that? Now, before we kind of jump into what that looks like today, what I know is that a lot has changed kind of post-COVID, post-2020, and how churches engage and reach new people, and also how people engage with a church. And so what have you seen? What have you experienced in regards to how that has changed?
Yeah. I think it is the question for the hour for church leaders to grapple with. I think that there's been some tectonic shifts that have happened just in recent years at a very accelerated pace. And, the pandemic itself, along with everything else, you look at the resurgence of racial tensions and political wars and moral battles, all of those things. It has rapidly shifted the way that people think, the way that they feel, and the way that they behave. And one of the things that I'm seeing is it's literally caused people today to just become more isolated. They want to get away from the noise, right? And you look at just everything that's going on, but this isolation, along with all these external pressures and tension, it's caused people today to just be more isolated, lonely, depressed, discouraged. And what's interesting to see is that it's changed people's perspective of even wanting to go to church or to attend church. On one side, what we're seeing, Barna just came out with a recent study and said, 74% of people today are more open to spiritual things. And that isn't just the gospel, right? More open to spiritual things than since the pandemic. And I think it's really since the Jesus People movement, right? And so on one hand, you see people, because of this void, they're more open than ever. But what you're watching, which kind of juxtaposes this whole thought, is people are more reluctant than ever to walk through the door of a church. And it's because of them just wanting to separate, right, from all of the noise. And so one of the things that we've seen in our studies is that prior to the pandemic, people would take an average of like 3 to 5 connect points with a church before they would consider walking through the door, whether that's a personal invite, a flyer, a social media post, whatever it might be. That has shifted now to 12 to 15 connect points.
Wow.
Which is crazy. And what you're seeing because of that is you're seeing people, they're screaming for help. However, they're very, very reluctant to walk through the door of a church. And it's something that we better be grappling with, as we're trying to figure out how we're going to reach people in this post-pandemic era,
Yeah. Well, if you're in ministry, then you know church operations can be a huge challenge. There's a lot to do, little time to do it, and whether it's just you or you have a team, my guess is you have a full plate. So how do you do things like communication and engagement, stewarding your finances, managing your digital presence, fostering community, and so much more in a way that builds a healthy church? Well, answering that question was the goal of creating the Guide to Healthy Church Operations. We wanted to take our 40 plus years of experience serving the church, combined with wisdom from various experts to provide a blueprint for how you can navigate the ever-changing world of church operations. In this guide, you'll find things like how to improve member engagement and participation, building into staff and volunteers, making better decisions with clear metrics, the essentials of financial stewardship for churches, and so much more. And of course, we wanted to give this to you for free. So there's a link in the show notes to download the Guide to Healthy Church Operations. And we would love for you to grab a copy and use it to help grow a healthy church. Well, I think one of the things that happens, right, is, and I was actually in ministry through that time. And I remember having conversations, thinking about like, I can't wait for things to get back to how they were.
Right.
And that has gone, right? We're not going back to how things were. And so that the fact that there's that many touch points, the fact that some of your methods, some of your strategies, some of all of that has to change, I think is something church leaders are still kind of wrestling with. Now, not only do you have extensive ministry experience yourself, but I know that you've worked with so many churches, still are currently. So what are some of those impactful changes that a church can make when it comes to their strategy to reach new people?
Sure. Going back to what you just said, which is, I think, a great segue, is that everybody wants to go back or hope that we could just go back to the way it was. That's never going to happen. Talking with a good friend, Tom Rayner, just told me that there's been a 20% decline in attendance just in the last 4 years. Like
Wow.
people just aren't coming back. And what's happened is churches are now trying to just go back and put all the Lego pieces together, right? They're just wanting to try to stabilize the troops when reality is that people are more open. So we're becoming more introverted than ever when the harvest is probably more open than ever, right?
Yeah.
And I think we could do a whole conversation just on the question, what are some of the strategies of reaching people, right? That'd be a great session in itself. But I think that there's two predominant things that I can think of, as you throw the question my way. The first one is this, and this is a colossal philosophical shift for churches to make. And it's this: we have to go where people are at. Jesus preached a gospel of go, not a gospel of come.
Yeah.
However, again, through the last generation, or at least decades, we have this attractional model of Christianity that, come to my church, come to my small group, come to my event, come to Easter, come to all of those things. And I think that has shifted significantly. And I'm reminded of the story of the Good Samaritan, right? Most of us on this, this conversation would be familiar with the story. Jesus in I think it's Luke 10 tells the story of this man that's beat up and left half dead, and he's thrown into a ditch. And if we could just kind of envision, for the sake of contextualizing this for this conversation, that's our society today. They're broken, they're half dead, they're in a ditch. And then he talks about the two types of people that come along and recognize this guy's condition, right? One is these two people, the Levite and the priest. And it's interesting the language that Jesus uses, because I think it's been somewhat the position of the church. And I'm not here to beat up the church. I'm a pastor. I love the church. But it says, when they saw his condition, they went to the other side. But today, we see the condition of people in society, and we look at what's happening with the transgender wars and the moral wars and the political wars and the racial wars, and it's just so overwhelming. We see it. And by the way, that is the harvest, right? But when we see it, we go to the other side. And what this is illustrating, what Jesus is trying to point out, is this whole idea is that we are recognizing that helping hurting, broken people just aren't our priority. We'd love to think it, we believe it, but we're not necessarily behaving it. D.L. Moody once said, Christians don't tell lies, they just sing them, And so we've got to get our orthodoxy to match our orthopraxy, right? We've got to get back to the gospel of go. Yeah. And it's where you see this second guy in this story is the Good Samaritan, right? And I love what Jesus says. He says, and when he saw his condition, it says he went to where he was at.
Wow.
And listen, I am all for inviting people to church. I'm all for Easter promotions and candlelight. Like I'm all for all those things, but they have to move into a supplemental place. That no longer is the primary way in which we're reaching people. Again, 12 to 15 connect points. And I know I'm rattling here, but I think this is important.
No, that's great.
The most significant place where you can find where people are at is the digital space, which is kind of the tone of our conversation today.
Yeah.
The average person spending 7.25 hours in front of a digital screen today, whether it's their iPhone or iPad or computer.
Wow.
The platforms where people are engaging now are not just the big five, Meta and YouTube and TikTok and Instagram and X, but it's 72 different digital platforms. You realize that voice recognition technology has taken center stage. 98% of churches aren't even there when people say, hey, Siri, find a church near me. They're not even showing up. 98% of churches, when it's like the fish are wanting to jump into the boat and the boat isn't even there, right? Yep. And then maps are in that place. And as well, you just throw AI and everything that's going on with AI. We realize that this is one of those shifts, right? People aren't coming into the church. We have to ask ourselves the question, where are they? They're in the digital space, and we get to reach them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, where they want to be reached to talk on platforms they want to talk about with devices that they feel comfortable with at 10 p.m. sitting on their bed, right?
Yeah.
So I call that the new Roman road. I mean, this is so important to understand, And my second point is, so that's the first one is, that we've just got to as a church go, okay, we've got to re-equip our people and reorganize our outreach strategies to go where people are at, not to just simply ask them to come. And the second point, which is really, I think, critical too, is this idea of just nurturing them. Like the church has become so busy, we don't have time to just get into the ditch with people. We've heard it said, and it's a famous saying, people don't care how you might know how much you know till they know how much you care. And it's interesting because Jesus, every time he was with the masses, you look at scripture, he finds the one, whether that's Zacchaeus or whether that's, blind Bartimaeus or the leper or the guy with the withered hand or the woman with the issue of blood. There's masses and all this stuff. And he stops and he says, no, I'm going to give time to the one, right? And I believe that's a word of the Lord for the church today. People want to they need love, they need relationship, they need help. They just don't need an invitation, right? They're not interested in our little reel of us preaching or a cool little, preaching clip or whatever. They're wanting help. And sadly, what has happened is the harvest, like this guy that's half dead, is they're hurting and they're broken and they're confused. And I go back to that Good Samaritan story. It says that he put him on a donkey, like he took him to the inn, he stayed with him overnight, and he paid his bill. Yeah. And if there was ever an illustration for us to see how this nurturing should happen in our life, this is a great story. And so I think we need to go where they're at. And once we get there, we need to be able to take the time, like to just be with them and care for them and love them, regardless of how they vote, regardless of their sexual orientation, regardless of the skin of their color of their skin. It's just like we need to just go love people where they're at and spend the time to nurture them. Yeah. So I know it's a long answer, but I'm just going, man, that is the word of the hour for us today.
Yeah. Well, it's a really rich answer because I think there's so many elements and aspects of it that just got my mind spinning. I think, one of them is just the cultural shift because there was a long period of time, specifically in the U.S., where it was relatively culturally normative to do things like we go to church on Christmas or Easter, or, hey, I'm going to, try and get my kids in a youth group or something, and there were some of these things that made sense then for the big push to be, hey, come to this, right? Come to our Easter service, come to our Christmas, come to our Sunday morning, because it's somewhat culturally normative. I'm not saying that it was completely true of everybody, but I think that's one of the things that's drastically changed is it's sort of like, well, why would I do that? And there's a big shift there. But with that, it is very much normative to be on a device and to have your device sort of not understand you. That's not the way I want to say that, but to where you can be reached through those platforms, communicated with, influenced, formed, shaped, all of that. And I think it is such an important call for church leaders. And it can be overwhelming, right, to figure it all out yourself, which is, I know we're going to talk about and dive into Visitor Reach and what you guys are doing a little bit later. But there are these tools that are like, hey, we actually can help you do this and do it in a really powerful way. And so I think what you bring up touches on those things and just highlights to church leaders that this is crucial for what the future of ministry looks like.
Yeah. And, it's, again, the technology and a device is the means, right? People are the end. Yeah. And so even with the best strategies and techniques like what we're talking about today, if we don't get a newfound love and heart for broken people. Like,
Mm,
people matter to God, they better matter to me. And
yeah.
sadly, because of the division that's taking place, I think God keeps giving us the opportunity to reach the harvest through these national crises. We have this racial war breakout, and we want to divide versus look at it as an opportunity to unite, right? Or the
Mm,
political, you don't vote like me, I'm going to cancel you. No, why not just go and use that as an opportunity to reach that person right where they're at? That's what Paul did, right? You
yeah.
1 Corinthians 9, and to the Jew I became a Jew, and to the Gentile became like the Gentile. He says, I became all things to all men that I might win some for the gospel's sake. Come on, Jesus, help us, right?
Yeah.
To
Yeah.
just reach people right where they're at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that is so important, right? That's the fuel in which it, propels all of this. And I think
Yeah.
when that heart is there, then naturally it's like, okay, how can we do that well? And I think that the right technology can impact the ability to reach people. So I'm curious for you, how have you seen technology impact, whether it's an assimilation or connection process, or just this ability to reach people, to participate in those 12 to 15 touch points? Like, what role have you seen the right tools and technology play in that?
Yeah. Again, Barna and some of the recent statistics that have come out, they've put out by Barna and everyone else, is the church is engaging in technology, whether that's online platforms or Zoom or streaming and all that stuff, but a very small percentage are actually using it strategically to reach lost people. I mean, it's in the
Mm,
single digits, right? And so if the majority of people today are living in the digital space, like, it's imperative for us that we have a digital footprint of where they're at on the platforms that they are at.
yeah.
And most churches, again, they don't have the staff, they don't have the education or the experience. And so they simply go on and going back to more traditional or conventional means. We spent about 4 months at Visitor Reach, the company that I'm working with now. And we put together a tool. It's called Digital Health Assessment. And what we wanted to do is to help every church fast track, like, to look at their digital health. And so basically what we do is it's literally 60 seconds. And a church can go on, they enter the information, and then we'll send someone an exhaustive 8-page report to show where they're weak, where they need to work on. So we're at least trying to take that first step of helping them understand where they're good at and where they're not so good at. And I'm just going to go ahead and mention it unapologetically. But if
Yeah.
any church that's listening on, this conversation today, it's digitalhealth.visitorreach.com. I'll say it again, digitalhealth.visitorreach.com. It's a $99 value, but we're just doing it free for everybody that's part of this church leadership lab. And we want you to go on and do that. And we're going to score your digital health, your Google and Apple Maps score, your website, your SEO, your social media presence, your overall digital health. And it's going to give you a big score. And at the end of the day, what we're trying to do is we're going to try to coach you and say, okay, this is now what you need to change in order to reach people. So we got a whole team that comes together. I call them our AI Jedis, but
Yeah.
digital marketing experts and SEO people and campaign managers and client relations coaches. And so we're just coming at that score and saying, hey, we're here to help you figure out what you need to do. So I think the first place I got to start is saying, where are we even at in this space, and what do we need to even fix in
Yeah.
order to
Yep.
get in front of the people that are around us, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll make sure to link to that for people in the show notes. So it's just super easy. They can
Right.
click right over there, because I think that is important, right? You can't start doing a bunch of things and trying to fix a bunch of things if you don't know what's broken. Now, I love, if you could, can you just give us a little bit of a history on Visitor Reach? Because I think, again, when pastors and ministry people come together with brilliant, you said AI, what was the word you used? AI Jedis,
Yeah.
and people who know tech and software and seek to create something for the church. I think it's so powerful. So can you just give us a little bit of a history and kind of the backstory of how that all started?
Yeah. So, it was really a divinely ordained opportunity that came our way. I've been in ministry now for 35 years. I'm right now in transition with the church that I'm currently at. Great transition, but living in Portland, Oregon, 272 days of riots with Antifa, our city burning down, people leaving the city in groves. We had lost thousands of people in a period of probably 30 to 60 days. They went to Tennessee and Texas and Idaho and Florida, and everybody escaping. We were diving into the city. Everybody was running from the city. And with all of the stuff we talked about earlier, all of these tectonic shifts, we started asking the question, hey, we have a heart and a passion to reach people, but what we're doing isn't working. They're isolated. They're broken. They're not coming through the door. And so it was a series of conversations that we began to have, myself with a couple other international and national leaders, going, okay, what's shifting and what do we need to do? Why aren't they coming? And it was in that conversation where we said, hey, people are more open than ever. They're more reluctant to come to church more than ever. They're hanging out in a digital space. So why aren't we in that space?
Yeah.
And it was a period of months of conversation where we begin to just recognize that, hey, maybe we need to put something together that will help us. And it really started like, how do we help our church first, right?
Yeah.
And so is once we began to dive into the conversation and really look at it, we said, hey, we think that we've come across something. I'm going to call it a blue ocean moment. Harvard would call it that, a blue ocean moment that every church could benefit from this, And so we really say that this is a ministry, but a business that is for pastors by pastors. Like we get the challenges, we get all of the pressures that are facing their way. And so that was how it originated. There's 7 co-founders. We came together and we said, let's put something together in this moment that will really help accelerate reaching people in this hour.
Yeah, that's awesome. So can you dive into a little bit then, for a church who's like, man, we need help with that. We want help. And really, we want to use a tool that can help us reach more people. Kind of walk them through what does Visitor Reach do? How does it help? Kind of what's the process for people?
Yeah. I first and foremost just say that, we are a tool, not the tool. But we are seeing some amazing and significant results. We take everything that we've talked about and now let's put it into a strategy for churches. We're really seeing great results. And so simply stated, Visitor Reach is it's a revolutionary AI digital outreach and follow-up strategy. And what it does is it seamlessly connects people in digital spaces in 3 categories. AI helps us to do this. We want to find people that are new to the area, people that are looking for a church, or people that are on a spiritual journey. And we can get that upper 5% because those are the people that are most open or prone to want to walk through the door of a church. And unlike, your typical or traditional social media approaches, our custom AI church tech app, what happens is we leverage over 70 different platforms, not just one. We leverage voice recognition technologies and maps, and it's all custom tailored specifically for that church. We understand that church. We build personas of the church based upon the way the guy preaches or the lady preaches, or based upon their belief system and the way that they dress. We can build personas to best connect with people in society that would be most likely to connect. And then we get in front of those people. And what we're trying to do is through social media and through, again, voice recognition technology and maps, when someone's searching, we want to be in front of them. And once they see one of the ads or whatever it might be, an online platform, a QR code, as soon as they see that and click, they give their name, their phone number, their email, and it drops right into an app. The church has our app, Visitor Reach app, and it begins immediate communication with this person. we found that 92% of people will respond immediately if you connect with them within 10 minutes, almost 100% within 1 minute. So our technology is connecting with them immediately, right? And what happens is that we start the conversation. And this is going back to nurturing, finding the one.
Yeah.
We connect with the person and it's, hey, Matt, this is Mark. Thanks for reaching out. How can I pray for you? My first contact with the person is at meeting them, knowing their name. They know my name. We're talking about their need at a place where they want to talk, using a platform that they feel comfortable with, that begins this conversation, these one-on-one personal conversations. And our goal then is to create these 12 to 15 connect points, sometimes 50 to 60. We had one guy in one of our churches that just came in after 10 months and 65 texts, walked into the door of a church and said the reason why he came is because he had been pastored more in the last 10 months than the last 10 years by this particular church. He just was
amazing.
And he was now ready to walk through the door of a church, right? And so what happens is the church, again, we're seeing anywhere from 20 to 150 live engagements a month with people that are beginning these conversations. And these compound, right? Month one, you have 150. Month two, you have 300. By 10 months, you have 1,500 people in the app that you're just pastoring and you're connecting with. And you're just, again, going along with them until they're ready to walk through the door. It's so different right now than let's send an Easter invite, hope you show up once, fit into the masses. We don't even know your name. Right. And it's a philosophical shift. And once again, we're just seeing people come through the door, and we're trying to close the back door too. The technology allows us to get them through engage, connect, assimilate, all the way through to follow up. And so there's different nurture points and quick replies and automated conversations that we have, as well as live conversations that just take people on this journey until they walk through the door of a church. So we're really excited about it, seeing great results as you know.
Man, I love it. I think it's such an interesting and fantastic tool, again, that is really on the front end of the technology. And so where can people find out more? So let's say they just heard that and they're like, man, I want to have that conversation. I know we're going to share the digital health assessment, but if people just want to explore more, can you point them in the right direction?
Yeah, it's real simple. Just visitorreach.com. Again, I know you're going to give it to them digitally, but visitorreach.com. And we want to model what we're asking you to model to lost people. If you just click on that Get Started button, within a matter of a minute, you're going to get a text. You're going to be asked to have a conversation. We will set up a meeting with you. One of our client specialists will get on the call and just share a little bit more about what we're doing, how we can help you. We'll try to get a digital health assessment into your hands. If you're interested, we'll set up a demonstration for you and your staff, and then we'll just get you started. We'll get you onboarded and spend 3 or 4 weeks developing all the custom tailor stuff that we need to develop for you. But it all starts by just going visitorreach.com, click the Get Started button, and you're well on your way. Yeah.
Fantastic. Well, again, we'll link to that. We'll encourage everybody to go to explore, check out, have a conversation, because I just love what you guys are doing. Now, one of the things that we ask everyone who's on this podcast, the goal is conversations that help empower healthy churches. I'm excited to hear your answer. Again, just given how long you've served the church in so many different capacities. But in your opinion, what's one essential component of a healthy church?
It's really 2, but I'm going to put it in 1 sentence.
That's fair. You can give 2 if you want.
And I don't want to take credit for this. I think Lauren Cunningham gets the credit for this one. But we need to know him, and we need to make him known. We need both. We need the Great Commandment. We need the Great Commission. We need to, it's so important. Again, we spend so much time working for him that we don't spend time being with him. We need to know him. And if we truly know him, we're going to make him known.
Yeah. Very well said.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to jump into our kind of closing section that we have, which we call our final five. These are a little more rapid fire coming at you, and we'll go from there. The first one, you have some books behind you. I don't know if this one's on the shelf, but what is one book that you'd recommend to church leaders?
I'm gonna have to say two. They're just sitting on my desk here. One is a book.
Deal.
One's a book called With. It's the subtitle is I think it's called Reimagining the Way You Relate to God. A guy named Sky Jethani. He should give me and you some royalties on this, but it is a fabulous book about how we imagine our relationship with God. So many people today in ministry are working with Him, working for Him.
Yeah.
A few are just being with Him. Great book. The other one's called After Doubt. Northwest guy's name's AJ Swoboda. How to question your faith without losing it. And it's really, it really looks at this whole idea of Reconstructionism. And I think today there's a lot of Reconstructionism taking place. And I think some stuff needs, deconstructed. I'm so sorry.
Yeah,
There's some things that we need to deconstruct in order to reconstruct. And so he does a great job talking about what's happening and how we can deal with the nuns and all of these people that are really, really walking away from God and walking away from the church.
Yeah, very good. All right, number two, what's the last thing that you listened to, whether it's Spotify, Apple Music, kind of whatever you stream things on?
I have to go with Acoustic Sessions by Elevation Church.
Nice.
Yeah.
What is your, and you can say visitor reach if you want, but what is your favorite technology or piece of software? The only rule we say is you can't say your phone because everyone usually says that.
Yeah, I'd have to say visitor reach app simply because it's every day reaching tens of thousands of people. But and that sounds a little biased, but on top of that, I'd probably go Chat GBT 4.0.
Yeah.
Become a great tool for me in just everything that I do.
Yeah. It's awesome. What is a quote or piece of advice that stuck with you over the years?
Never be too busy for the one. Like, it doesn't matter who we are. It doesn't matter our title. It doesn't matter our position. God puts thousands of people in our path every day. I wake up every morning and I pray this prayer, Lord, put someone in my path that I might touch for you today. And if we simply pray that prayer and be mindful, there's people all over the place that are looking to be loved. And so I just say, let's not be too busy for the one. People matter to God. They should matter to us.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Yeah.
All right. Last one. What's one thing that you'd like to communicate to our audience of church leaders?
Wow. You were brought to the kingdom for such a time as this. Like I believe that God has saved his best for last. Paul's not here. Peter's not here. Ruth's not here. Esther's not here. You're here. And as we're living on the crest of one of the greatest awakenings in history, I think we need to look at this as an opportunity. We are seeing a divine setup, not a divine setback. And God's placed you in your city, in your church, for a time such as this. And let's make sure that our focus is on reaching people that are open to the gospel.
Yeah. What a wonderful note to end on, and just so appreciate you taking your time, not only to share your experience, what you've learned, walk through what you're seeing, but also to share some really helpful resources with church leaders. We're really grateful for it. We're going to link to all of that and hopefully encourage and strengthen church leaders. So thank you, Marc, for your time. And thank you for those of you listening, watching this. We so appreciate it. And we really hope that it's been helpful. Again, our goal is conversations that empower healthy churches. So if you have found this helpful, our only ask of you would be to share it with somebody, whether you send them a link, whether you leave a review on iTunes, whether you subscribe, leave a comment on YouTube. All of that stuff just helps us get these conversations into more church leaders' ears. So we would certainly appreciate that. It's an honor and privilege to have these conversations, to bring them to you. And so we're thankful for your time today, and we look forward to next time.
This episode of the Church Leadership Lab podcast is brought to you by Ministry Brands, the largest provider of church technology software. Over 90,000 churches rely on Ministry Brands for their single platform solution that brings together all the digital tools a church needs. From online giving to websites to church management software and more, Ministry Brands is leading the way in simple to use, innovative solutions, all with the goal of empowering healthy churches. To learn more, visit ministrybrands.com.